Good morning, I'm harleysch from the LaRouche organization with your daily video update for May 8th, 2024. Today in Germany, as well as in Moscow, is a celebration of VE Day, that is Victory in Europe Day, the day in which the end of World War II was confirmed with the signing. And it was May 9th in Russia, but it was May 8th still in Europe when that happened. But it's a good time to take a review of where we stand on the issues of war and peace. I attended the VE Day commemoration in Berlin, which was very dignified and somber, with people carrying pictures of relatives of Russian soldiers who died in the war to liberate Europe from the Nazis. And in that somber reflection, it's worthwhile looking at what we face today. And in a sense, the two roads that are diverging. On the one side, you have the continuation of an oligarchy, which is pushing for war. They're defending the existing world order, and their intention is to sustain the looting policies of a neo-colonial system to prop up the terribly overburdened debt situation facing most of the Western economies. And of course, the people in the West, because with inflation, with loss of jobs, loss of industry, we're seeing increasing desperation in a family-by-family basis. Now, defending this existing order means neo-colonial policy. It means imposing economic conditions of subservience on most of the world's population, while raw materials and cheap labor is exploited by the superpowers led by the military force of the United States and NATO. This is the dollar system of London and Wall Street, a system which is nearing its end and yet is even more rapacious because the needs to refinance and sustain it have been greater and greater. Now, in the meantime, that means destabilization and wars. It means more money for the war in Ukraine, the proxy war against Russia. And losing wars is no problem for the oligarchy. Look at the situation with Afghanistan, with Iraq, with Libya, the continued problems faced in Ukraine. Will Taiwan be next? Well, the depopulation and the destruction done is no problem to the oligarchy because they feel somewhat protected by distance and by their wealth from the misery they're inflicting on populations. Now, there have been some developments on both sides. On the one hand, you have the drive for war and continuation of the system. On the other, you have the attempt to create a new system, an alternative, a break with that. Well, in Europe, we had in the last days David Cameron, the foreign minister of Great Britain, tell the Ukrainians that they can use British weapons to target Russia. And that he said that it's wrong to hold back. The Atlantic Council applauded him, saying that Putin's bluff should be called and so on. Now, on the other side, you have the trip by Xi Jinping to Europe, where he had 2 days with Macron. Now, Macron has been on the same line as Cameron, confront Russia, if necessary, with NATO troops. But there was an interesting development coming out of the discussions with Xi. And we don't know exactly what Xi said to him, but we do know that in the op-ed that he wrote before the meetings, he said that France and China should play a role in bringing back stability, ending war, ending poverty. And what Macron said is that he clarified France is not at war with Russia and has no intention to work for regime change in Russia. Now, at the same time these kinds of events are occurring, we're seeing growing resistance to the Unipolar Order coming from the global south, from the BRICS countries, especially led by Russia and China. And what's the issue for them? Sovereignty. No subservience on the basis of economic power, no commitment to protect an order which loots its own population. Sovereignty means acting in the interests of its population, which includes economic development and no to unregulated free trade, which is really a policy that benefits the corporate cartels. Now, we're also seeing resistance coming from youth on college campuses in the United States, throughout the country, and now spreading to Europe, to Scotland, to Great Britain, to France, to Germany, to Switzerland. Now, these demonstrations are sparked by a reaction to the complicity of the Western governments to the genocidal murder of the Palestinian people by the Israeli armed forces. And of course, the oligarchy says, well, this resistance is anti-Semitism. No, it's anti-genocide. And the fact that they're trying to hide behind the charge that people opposing the Gaza incursion are anti-Semitic shows the desperation to change the narrative, to change the discussion. Now, what happened in the last couple of days is that the Hamas agreed to the Israeli terms for ceasefire, and Netanyahu stayed true to his word. He said, well, ceasefire or not, we are going to go into Rafah. And that started 2 days ago. It's been, quote, limited, unquote, so far, but they did shut off the one transit point between Egypt and Gaza, which means more blockading of food and water, more misery for the people trapped in Rafah. It's totally enclosed, and it's being described by UN officials as a concentration camp with over 1 million Palestinians trapped there. Now, the Biden administration was forced to react, and what they did was the most minimal of measures. They're holding back 2 shipments of arms, of weapons, for an unspecified period of time. And these are the large bombs, which do the most damage, the 2,000-pound and I think 500-pound bombs. Now, we'll see whether that holds up. I don't think it will. I think this is a temporary measure, a signal to the opponents of the administration that, well, we're hearing your complaints, but I think unless it's completely cut off, unless Biden says no more arms to Israel, we're going to continue to see the killing take place. Now, meanwhile, also driving the reaction of young people is the cost of these wars. That at a point in which there's no money for many necessary social measures, there are billions of dollars going into weapons for Ukraine, for Israel, for Taiwan, military bases sustained all over the world, and collapsing infrastructure at home. Now, this is an interesting subject brought up by Sarah Wagenknecht in Germany, an inquiry about the state of transportation in Germany. And the Transport Ministry put out a report which said that they need to replace 1,160 bridges in Germany and to repair 8,000. 8,000 bridges must be repaired. Now, between 2021 and 2023, only 510 bridges were repaired. So how many years will that take to repair the 8,000 that need reparation? And in the meantime, 2 major bridges have collapsed in Germany in the last 3 years. Also, they report 7,100 kilometers of highway needs repaired. So instead of sending billions to Ukraine for a war that's not going to be won, why not invest in the physical economy of your own nation? And the way to do that is to give up this idea of making Germany war ready. Make Germany people ready. How about the negotiations? How about diplomacy? How about the road not taken? And that's the important question that has to be posed to the establishment by the people. In the language of Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken, he ends the poem by saying that the traveler took the road less traveled by, and that made all the difference. Well, what's the road less traveled by? The road of negotiations, of diplomacy, of acting for the common good, for the general welfare. That should be the demand coming from the people. not just ceasefire, not just an end to the shipment of weapons and an end to the neo-colonial looting, but a commitment to improve the physical economic conditions of every nation on the planet, beginning with the Oasis Plan for the Middle East. Now, this is what we're fighting for, and I encourage you again, sign up in the description section for the free subscription to the Executive Intelligence Review online. And also, I'm appending the interview I did with Helga Zepp-LaRouche yesterday.